So I'm with David Hochhalter. There's many ways to pronounce his last name, but we'll go with that one for now. And he's a Team Canada Ultimate player. He's been to Worlds multiple times in several different formats and variations. And here we are at a disc golf tournament. So this is the Canadian Satellite Tournament, which is supposed to be happening across Canada. Some other, I think PEI happened a while ago.
Yep.
We had to push it back with COVID, so we just finished this weekend. So Ultimate player, disc golfer, playing Ultimate again this fall. So just tell me a bit about how you got into Ultimate.
And Ultimate, I got into playing when I was in university at Michigan State, so down in the States. And I obviously wasn't good enough to play football anymore, which I played in high school, and still needed a kind of competitive outlet, something to keep me going and keep my drive in healthy places. And so found the Ultimate Frisbee team. At that point, it was called the Burning Couch. Now I think it's called ARC, which stands for Always Remember Couch, because the university wasn't so thrilled about having Burning Couches as a team name. But yeah, so that was back in 2008 when I started playing competitively there, and then that kind of rolled into the club scene, playing mixed in Michigan with a team called Overhaul. So played nationals a couple times with them, and then into some other opportunities as well.
Awesome. So what was the first year you started playing Ultimate?
2008.
2008. Okay, so that would have been just after UT came out. Do you remember Ulti Village?
Yeah.
Did you ever watch any of the Ulti Village?
That's kind of like, those were declining as my career was starting, but they were always a good time.
Yeah. I Bleed Black. Did you ever watch that?
I didn't watch it.
No.
I heard about it. That's the Wisconsin one?
That's the Santa Barbara, the Tide, the Black Tide.
What was the Wisco one?
I don't know. I don't think I got to see that one.
I didn't see I Bleed Black, no.
And then there was the other one from Portland, the Rhino one.
Yeah, when they didn't make nationals.
Yeah.
They're documentary about making nationals and then not making nationals.
And so you've gotten to play with Furious and Goat.
Yep.
So there's a few players that have played with both.
Yep.
And depending on the year, you could say Furious is better, Goat's better. Kind of depends where nationals are.
Usually who wins is better.
Usually who wins that's an easy one.
Yeah.
And so you've had a lot of success. Just very quickly, what's been your favorite worlds? Juniors, club, the country one.
My favorite worlds was probably London in 2016. We didn't do as well on the open side. We ended up losing in the bronze medal game to Australia. And it was still a little wet, but the fields there were great. We had a really good team. The teams we played against were fantastic. We played against a Japanese team that lost to Team USA in the finals, and that was incredible. And we played against that USA team as well. I think that was, at that point, it was the peak. I don't know if that team would beat the current teams, but we haven't seen that in a while. So with Worlds getting canceled with COVID. So London was probably my favorite. The quality of the fields there were phenomenal. The teams there were great. And just the team we had was a really good mix of both kind of East, West, and Central Canadian players. So it was a great time.
I remember watching that. I was there working with WIFDIF, and Australia had a guy that can run a 100-meter in like 10.2 seconds.
Sure.
Brennan or whatever his name is. So we're seeing more athletes. I mean, you being a former football player, have you seen a lot of evolution in Ultimate as far as strategy and athletes and things like that go?
Yeah, definitely. I think actually the strategy maybe is becoming more simplified now that real athletes are playing. And so it's harder for people like me. So I've always been on the verge of being a real athlete, but not quite there. And so now, as younger, faster, stronger, bigger athletes are starting to pick up the sport, it becomes harder and harder for people like me who, I'm not old yet, but I feel old against some of these guys. And so it's really exciting for the growth of the sport to have them come around, but it's also makes it more competitive for the guys that have been around for a while.
Yeah. So today you just finished fourth. You won some money.
I won some money.
Have you won more money in disc golf than you have in Ultimate?
I now have won more money in disc golf than I have in Ultimate. I've received some payouts in Ultimate, but I wouldn't say those were necessarily earned with my play. But yeah, I've received some money playing pro and semi-pro Ultimate. But now in terms of kind of quote unquote paychecks, disc golf has now surpassed the Ultimate Frisbee prize winnings. And surely spent a lot more money on Ultimate.
Yeah, and you buy more golf discs, but you're getting sponsored. We talked about a sponsorship earlier.
Yeah, I was guaranteed a sponsorship by some of your friends, so we'll see how that plays out.
I love it. It's been a struggle with Pro Ultimate to get going. Just eyeballs, and it's been a challenge. In disc golf, it's not been a challenge at all. Right. Do you see Ultimate ever getting to that point? You can be, realistic. You can also just be a dreamer and say, yeah, for sure, but it's just not. It's a different sport than disc golf for sure, and maybe it'll get to where it could be with what it is.
It could. I mean, it's hard because when you look at disc golf, and I like to talk about in terms of competitive units, and so a competitive unit in Ultimate is a team of 27 to 30 people, depending on your coaching staff and support. And in disc golf, it's one person that you have to equip and send to places, and so it's a lot easier to achieve lots of kind of the social issues. So if you look at the gender equity side, that's hard to build opportunities that are equal for different divisions, because it's so hard to build any opportunities for any divisions. And so it's a lot easier to focus a lot more on that, and disc golf is doing a better job of that. So being a fringe sport, both of them having an opportunity to be quote unquote different sports culturally and socially, and giving equitable opportunities for things, disc golf has done a much better job advancing that, and it's kind of surpassed ultimate. Not to say ultimate doesn't have a chance. It's a very different type of sport. It's more exciting. It's higher speed. It's high impact. It's on the ground with your feet kind of thing, not bodies, hopefully. Yeah. So they could get there, but it's going to take, there's piles of money pouring into disc golf right now. There's not piles of money pouring into ultimate, and so that's what it's going to take for ultimate frisbee.
And we had an interesting chat about, you get to the course, you bring nothing, they give you the discs.
Yeah.
If you can simplify that, like a track and field meet, everybody's in one stadium. An overall competition for frisbee, you're all over the place. And we just saw a 700-foot throw by Eagle McMahon yesterday. Like, just the potential for disc golf and throwing objects.
Yeah.
And will we ever set limits on it? It's going to be interesting to see what continues to happen.
Yeah, it's a good question, especially as the plastic and the kind of the modeling technology improves around creating and designing these discs, and finding different ways to throw them. It's going to keep advancing, and you mentioned overall just being able to bring in more and more disc sports now, where I know people have always mistaken all disc sports to be dog disc sports. Yet now we have some disc sports that have surpassed that popularity, but it's also there's a bunch of different ways with WIFDIF that you can experience disc sports, and so it's gonna be really cool now that I've experienced more than one in a competitive sense. It's gonna be interesting to now find more and get engaged more in that kind of grander disc sport community.
And disc golf, how you started playing during COVID, or you've known about it for a while?
Yeah, kind of similar to how I played ultimate, because I didn't have a chance to play football anymore. Is COVID shut down team sports like ultimate frisbee, and so needing a competitive outlet, something to get me out of the house. Disc golf seemed like a very natural transition. That's very similar concepts. I now, when I hold like an ultimate frisbee, like an Ultra Star, it feels like a child's toy, just because the technology isn't there like it is in these disc golf discs. And so it's different, but a lot of the same kind of concepts. And it's a good kind of outlet for competition, and also just like for me to be able to connect with my brothers. We weren't supposed to be traveling out of town, and so it's nice to be able to meet kind of halfway at a disc golf course and play a couple rounds with them and enjoy it in that way.
I love that. What do you see the future for you? Continue to play disc golf? Continue to play ultimate?
It depends when you ask me. Right now, the week before Ultimate Frisbee Nationals, I am 100% focused on starting right now on getting ready for that tournament. Off season, obviously, it's a little easier to relax and kind of focus on other things. But long term, some kind of mix of both. They're always you want to be monetizing your passions and subsidizing your hobbies, kind of thing. And so, if we can bring in some more money to my disc sport life via disc golf, that's great. To support the expense that is ultimate frisbee, but they both have their place. Disc golf is not going to keep me in shape. Ultimate frisbee and training for that will keep me in shape, and so that keeps me healthy, which lets me play disc golf, which funds ultimate frisbee, and so it's a nice little cycle.
I love that.
Yeah,
appreciate that. Do you think you're going to get into some of the overall stuff, or is it, having those two disciplines are pretty good for you?
We'll see. I'd like to. I mean, it's hard to fit things in on weekends, but if you can kind of have combined events, like for you fans out there of Rob, we're talking about doing kind of some long distance stuff and kind of building that into some tournaments and creating the format so it's a little more exciting for spectators to watch and for athletes to engage in. So I think there's lots of opportunities to do that, just kind of like if you look at what CrossFit has done for the weightlifting community, and creating something different but still exciting enough and still kind of training focused. And so I think there's lots of opportunities for that with disc sports. I want to at some point get into dog disc sports because I love dogs and I'm good at throwing, so it's another natural fit. Absolutely. But there's a whole other person that needs to get trained for that I don't know how to do that. So
I know some people.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Awesome. Cool. So yeah, if you're looking into getting into disc golf, you're an ultimate player, there's a lot of resources in Ulti-World. I know you were on a podcast recently. I don't know if you get to talk about disc golf, but there's been some ultimate players talking about the crossover. Ella Hansen is probably the most well-known.
Brody
and Ella Hansen are the two most well-known, I'd say.
Yeah.
That have sort of gotten into disc golf and have done really well, gotten sponsorships.
Yeah,
really
and
helped elevate the game.
Yes, and it's interesting because we're starting to see, like, my ultimate frisbee team now is sponsored by Gander Disc Golf, a disc golf retailer, and so we're starting to see some crossover between the two because there's a recognition of both community building and kind of athlete support that you can get It's really complementary. And so if you have opportunities to work together, there's more groups and organizations that are seeing that. And so now our program is sponsored by a retailer in Gander, which then helps me as a player because I can get discounts and things through them, which then helps the program. And so it's just like it all kind of goes, again, it's very complementary. And so it'll be exciting to see more of that happen. I know, like, as an Ultimate Frisbee player, when we looked at Discraft, we always wondered why, Ultimate Frisbee didn't give any deals on discs. And now we realize, well, it's because we buy maybe tens of discs from them, Ultra Stars, per season, while they're selling now maybe it's millions, probably not, hundreds of thousands of discs to individuals all over the country. And so seeing the size of this market now and how the money moves around has been very interesting, kind of how it compares to Ultimate Frisbee. So I think there's a lot more opportunity for crossover, and I think we're going to start to see that more. But it'll be some time still.
Wicked. All right.
Yeah.
Good luck in nationals.
Thank you.
Yeah.